This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Welcome to Usapang Bayan. Ako po si George Chua, kasama ang aking co-host na si Rach Marquez. Pag-uusapan po natin ang mga issue dito sa ating bayan at mga iba pang bagay.
Makakasama po natin sa gabing ito para pag-usapan ang firearm ownership sa bansa, Gun Owners in Action o GOAC Vice President and General Counsel, Atty Rod Moreno. Welcome to the show, sir.
Good afternoon. Good evening, George and Rach. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's nice to have you on our show, Atty Rod. Maybe just as a little background there, how did you get involved in this GOAC movement, and what is it all about?
Well, right now we're about 4,000 members. We're all licensed gun owners, civilians. We're professionals, businessmen, lawyers. And we all got together about 3 years ago when the new firearms law, RA 10591, was first took effect. And although, of course, we do appreciate the new firearms law because it puts in black and white the rights of gun owners, there are certain provisions there that are onerous and unfair to licensed gun owners. And in fact, some of those provisions seem to favor criminals. So we eventually challenged that law in the Supreme Court, where our petition is pending to date. And aside from that, of course, we have been lobbying with Congress to amend the law. And of course, we've been conducting awareness campaigns, and we also, actually, we've moved beyond guns, although that is still our core. What we do right now is we conduct seminars at the grassroots level for public safety, community safety, personal awareness, that kind of thing, disaster preparedness. It's really just about public safety, essentially. That is our advocacy.
Rod, my understanding is that there are, how many millions of gun owners do we have in the Philippines, registered gun owners?
Well, there are. If you're talking about the number of firearms, there are about 1.2 million licensed firearms. And then, of course, aside from that, you have the licensed firearms per the PNP. Their estimate is another million.
Oh, wow.
So that's a lot of guns floating around, both legal and illegal.
Yeah, but why do you think with that many number of guns,
Yes.
Both legally licensed and unlicensed, why is it our membership base for GOAC is only 4,000?
Well, right now, actually, we're a fairly new group. We've been working on getting members. And of course, it takes time, that kind of thing. We're all volunteers. We all have to earn a living in our own way. So this is more of an advocacy thing. And unfortunately, a lot of, gun owners are should we say, or could be more proactive in terms of asserting their rights. So we encourage more people to join us. Anyway, there's no money involved here.
So you mean to say as GOAC, this is purely a volunteer organization? You guys don't get paid or anything like
yes,
that?
we don't get paid.
Oh.
In fact, sometimes we dish out our own money for stuff.
So this is like a pro bono work for you?
Yes, it's advocacy.
It's advocacy?
Yes.
And what is the primary goal of GOAC?
Well, we want to remove this taboo that attends firearms ownership for civilians. There's this wrong notion that's been prevailing for the longest time that if you own a gun, you must be a bad person, you must be a troublemaker, and that's not true. That's absolutely not true. We're trying to propagate that people who own guns are responsible people who just want to protect themselves and their families. And we want to, I guess you could say, spread the gospel of self-defense, self-preservation, community safety to people, to society.
Well, in my experience as a registered firearms holder myself, and I've taken my license to own and possess
Yes.
firearms already,
Yes.
I can say that the process after we had enacted into law the firearms law,
Yes.
I think has become more difficult rather than making it easier. Are we doing anything to try to make it a simpler process to own firearms?
Well, in the beginning, when RA 10591 was first enacted, it was very difficult. In fact, it was whimsical, shall we say, under the previous leadership of the PNP. And so, of course, we fought back, so to speak. We filed a case and so forth. And so the PNP on its own, with the change in leadership, to be fair to them, under the current leadership and even under General Espina and General Marquez, they tried to simplify things. Of course, the FAO chief now, General Binag, has really professionalized matters. But our problem is that we don't want to be held hostage or dependent on whoever the head honcho is. We want to institutionalize it. And that is what we're trying to do right now. That's why we're working with Congress to try to legislate the process.
For the knowledge of the general public, sir, how does one acquire a gun license? What are the requirements and the processes?
Well, actually, under RA 10591, you have two licenses. You have what George mentioned earlier, the license to own and possess firearms. You license the person. So to do that, you have to produce appropriate government clearances to show you have no criminal record, you have no drug problem, you're a Philippine citizen, you have income. Once you submit that, you'll be given your license to own and possess firearms, commonly referred to as LTOP. And after that, you can now choose whatever firearm you want, and you can have it registered under your name, pursuant to your LTOP. And there is, of course, a limit. Depending on the LTOP type that you choose, you can have minimum of 2, maximum of, actually sky's the limit under the law. So it really depends on, of course, your financial capacity and your own interest.
Yeah, we should mention that the Rod is correct in that there is an associated costs with it, no? I think for each firearms license that you register, it's different from the actual license to own and possess firearms.
Correct.
No? So what are the current rates right now, just to give them a broad idea?
Well, the license to own and possess, depending on your type, can go all the way up to 5,000 pesos, and that is good for 2 years. The registration of the firearm, each firearm, as I recall, it's about 1,200. So in that sense, it is not that prohibitive. I think we take issue with the fact that it is the process, as you mentioned, George, that makes it very cumbersome. And in fact, you could say it seems that the system is designed to discourage gun owners from asserting their rights, which we're trying to change.
Maybe we should also add that the actual getting of the various clearances and tests does have some money involved in it also.
Yes.
And it could run into the thousands of pesos, because if you take into account the drug test, neuropsychiatric tests, the fees and the expense it will take you to, let's say, get your NBI clearance,
Yes.
Directorate for Intelligence clearance, and so many other clearances, it's not really a walk in the park, so to speak.
True.
It will require, I think, a number of days
True.
in terms of securing all of these things and taking the neuropsychiatric tests.
Correct.
Yes.
In fact, George, now that you mentioned it, some of the requirements are rather redundant.
Yes.
For example, they used to require proof of income. And there was a time when the law was first enacted, they would take only your income tax return. Under law, that's confidential. But they demanded your ITR. And that was the running joke among some men. Buti pa yung PNP, alam magkano kinikita namin, yung misis namin, hindi, di ba? So that has been done away with, thanks to our lobbying, modesty aside. And in the same way, we are saying, why do you need a court clearance? I'm a practicing lawyer. Court clearances are not centralized. You can get your clearance in Makati but have a case in Parañaque. The Makati court will not know. NBI is the best form of clearance. And so now they're accepting the NBI clearance just as well.
Sir, under our current gun ownership law, a qualified person may apply for a permit to carry if
Yes.
he or she is under actual threat
Yes.
or is in imminent danger due to the nature of his or her work or
Correct.
profession or business.
Correct.
Is it advisable for women like me to carry a gun to protect myself? Like, for an instance, covered yung media profession
Yes.
and nurses.
Yes, correct. Actually, Rachel, we take issue with that section in RA 10591, Section 7, which says that, which recognizes the fact that certain people need to carry a firearm outside their residence.
Yeah.
because they are other threat, either because of their profession or because they do have an actual threat due to circumstances beyond their control. But I think we all know, with the way society is now, everyone is under threat when you step out of your house. To answer your question, we encourage all members of society, men and women, as long as they're qualified and responsible, to arm themselves and to learn how to use it properly. People in media are always under threat: lawyers, doctors, engineers, accountants.
Attorney Rod, I'd like to ask if you have done any lobbying effort, first of all, to synchronize the validity period of the firearms license with the LTAP, no?
Yes.
In the firearms license, is valid for, is it 4 years?
4 years, correct.
4 years, and the LTAP is 2 years. So is it possible to make the LTAP, or request that the LTAP be also be for 4 years?
Well, George, as I said, we've been lobbying with Congress, and of course, it's not an easy process. We have to work with both the House and the Senate. We're a member of several technical working groups in the House and the Senate on firearms law. We're hoping to get there eventually. Actually, George, beyond the synchronization, what we take issue with is the fact that every 2 years you have to submit the same requirements all over again for your license to own. You have to show again your NBI clearance. You have to show that you're of sound mind. And I like to say, for example, I'm a lawyer. If you can prove I'm not of sound mind, you can disbar me. But the fact that I'm still an attorney, doesn't that prove that I'm sane? Why do I have to submit every 2 years this piece of paper? It's redundant, and it's actually it does not serve the purpose of the law as far as we're concerned.
What needs to be improved in our policies, attorney, regarding gun ownership?
Well, actually, beyond the policies, it has to be the mindset and the view of people. I will give you an example. Under RA 10591, ownership and carrying of a firearm is a right. It's spelled out in the law. The PNP, the police, I guess it's a leftover of martial law. Their position is that it is a privilege that they can revoke anytime. And they say it openly. They've said it in Congress when we're there, that kind of thing. So that has to be changed, because a privilege is a US visa, as we've seen with President Trump. That is not the same with a firearms license. It's in the law, black and white, that you can own it and you can keep it and you can carry it. So we have to change the mindset of people, PNP, and even society in general. It bothers us in GoAct, the hypocrisy really of it. You see business owners hiring security guards, armed guards to guard their establishment. These people are not trained in the use of firearms, judgment, the ability to use it. And yet they criticize civilians such as ourselves, who are willing to put in time and money and effort into learning how to use a firearm. For me, let's walk our talk. If we're willing to pay people, rent a cops, as they say, to carry a gun to watch our establishment, why can't you allow people to look after themselves?
Well, one other comment I'd like to make, talking about being able to learn how to defend yourself. It's next to impossible to bring a legally licensed firearm into the shooting range so you can practice on it. No? You need to have a permit to carry, or a transport permit, which is only granted for a period of the competition. No, it's not like a 3-month thing or an indefinite period type of thing. So how can that be resolved?
Actually, George, that's what we've been saying, that the PNP is in effect encouraging people to become criminals by carrying their firearm outside the residence without the appropriate license to carry, permit to carry. And again, it goes back, I suppose, to the PNP's mindset of it being a privilege. And that is why we, in our group, we have been pushing with Congress to set up a civilian regulatory board to govern the matter of issuance of licenses of firearms. Who gets issued a license, the database. It should be a civilian agency. The PNP, with all due respect to them, is not a management agency. It is not a public service agency. It is a law enforcement agency. Issuing licenses is something that is alien to it, and that is why you have all these experiences of people, all these negative experiences. That's why we're saying they should set up a civilian firearms regulatory board. That is what we've been pushing for.
How can one responsibly carry a gun?
Well, you have to train. You cannot go to a shop and buy and walk out with it. That is really irresponsible. You have to get someone who's proficient to train you, undergo seminars and training, which we offer for free. And once you're comfortable with it and you've shown that you're capable of carrying it, then eventually you can get one yourself. And of course, even after you gain proficiency, you have to maintain it by practicing regularly in a safe environment.
I have a question. This is a practical question for firearms license holder, many of which I believe have not been able to get their LTAP, no?
Yes.
Or renewal
Yes.
of their firearms
Yes.
license, simply because they're either too far away
Yes.
or they just don't know how to go about doing it. What can GoAct do to help these people? Is there a website they can go to? Are there people that they can call up so that they can walk them through the process? Not necessarily to facilitate it, but to really help them understand how to fill up the forms, what forms are needed, what clearances are needed, and where to go, and so on.
Yes. Actually, we have a website, www.goact.us, GoAct.us. And we have, of course, the process of getting a firearm license is there. And it's outlined, and if they need clarification, they can email us. We'll be glad to give a more detailed explanation. And of course, if there are any complaints, we encourage gun owners or civilians to let us know of, about whatever negative experiences they may have. So we can help them bring their concerns to the proper authorities.
As a lawyer attorney, what cases can be filed against those who use their licensed guns in threatening other people?
Well, the use of a licensed gun in a crime is that can be anything from the crime of grave threat to even attempted homicide, attempted murder. That's a criminal case. Aside from that, you will get your firearm revoked. You'll get all your firearms licenses also revoked. And I think that's just right. After all, gun ownership, as I've been saying, is a right. But like any right, it has responsibilities that go with it. And I think threatening someone in an unlawful manner shows that you're not capable of carrying out those responsibilities.
When I was more involved in the firearms industry, I recall the statistics provided by the police shows that only about 1/2% of all firearms involved in crime are legally licensed. No?
Correct.
And actually, they were not quite clear as to whether that 1/2% included the ones that used it to defend themselves. So technically, it is involved in it. So maybe that percentage is really zero.
That's what I was going to say, George.
What is the actual latest statistics now?
Well, George, I was in the TWG in the House of Representatives about 3 months ago with General Binag of the FEO. And he himself acknowledged, it's on record, that 1% of the firearms used in crimes are licensed. Everything else are unlicensed. And as you said, I'd like to ask him for the data. When you shoot someone in self-defense, you'll be charged.
Yeah.
As a matter, it's a procedural matter. So maybe that includes that, as you've said. And so that's what we've been saying. Why are you picking on us? We're not the problem here. It's all these unlicensed guns floating around.
Actually, I think what really happens, especially during gun ban, is that when legally licensed firearms holders are prevented from carrying their guns,
Correct.
it's like a field day for for the unlicensed firearm holders. No?
True.
The criminals, the lawless elements, the terrorist groups and things like
The
that.
private armed groups.
The private
Correct.
armies.
Correct.
They don't even have registered firearms to
Correct.
begin with.
Correct.
So to them, it's like open season to to do more of their dastardly deeds, because then fewer people, both law-abiding citizens and police personnel, will be unable to stop them because they're not armed. Because, and I say police personnel, because my understanding is that as a police personnel, once you're out of uniform, you're subjected to regular rules on, like, you're treated like a civilian.
Yes.
So I can imagine the difficulty of our police brothers who have to work and protect the citizenry wearing their uniform, and at the same time, after taking it off, and everybody still knows their face because they don't wear a mask, is now subjecting themselves to open, to problems. No? But maybe we'll continue with this. We need to have a station break at this point. Sa amin pong pagpabalik, makakasama pa rin natin si GoAct Vice President and General Counsel, Atty Rod Moreno. Please stay tuned.